your capacity to improve hypertrophy or to engage strength changes in that muscle. That your ability to contract a muscle hard is inversely related to the number of sets that you should do in order to isolate and stimulate that muscle. And there are some other things that can enhance the whole process of building nerve to muscle connections, making them more efficient and generating, if you like, more strength and hypertrophy. One of them, I loathe to say, I was told, is in-between set contractions. The other name for this is the people in the gym, does typically seem to be guys in the gym flexing their muscles in between sets. And indeed, the research supports the fact that contractions of about 30 seconds in between the actual work sets, they're not going to favor better performance on the work sets. If anything, they're going to compromise them. But those hard contractions in between sets, for a variety of reasons related to local muscle metabolism, as well as what we talked about before, which are stress, tension, and damage, they seem to improve stress, tension, and damage and the nerve to muscle contraction in ways that facilitate hypertrophy. In other words, if you see that person flexing in between sets in the gym, provided that they're really isolating that muscle and provided it's one that they ought to be improving, not one of these people that always skips leg day type of people. These people are highly asymmetric, although that's up to them. That process of flexing in between sets does seem to improve the nerve to muscle connection and enhance hypertrophy. And I say I was loath to say it because, nowadays with phones, it seems like the end of every set includes a selfie. And that's sort of like the 11th rep of every set. I like to joke. It seems like very few people are capable of actually going into the gym and doing a workout without taking a picture of themselves, which I think is fine if that's your thing. Although I must say that the athletes that I know, and even the recreational athletes that I know who seem to get the most out of their training and who also seem to get the most out of other aspects of their life, seem to be able to control their phone behavior both in the gym and outside of the gym. But that's more of an editorial point there. In an earlier episode, I talked about estrogen and testosterone, and during that discussion, I talked about the use of resistance exercise specifically for increasing testosterone, both in men and in women. And indeed, that is a powerful effect of resistance exercise. And indeed, it's mediated by the nerve to muscle connections. We talked about that in that earlier episode. I just want to briefly mention that protocol since it's distinctly different from the other protocols I've talked about today. The protocols I've talked about today thus far of explosive movements or of hypertrophy-based training, provided the training is 60 minutes or less, will cause increases in serum testosterone. That's been shown over and over again. And if the session extends too long, past 75 minutes, and is of sufficiently high intensity, chances are testosterone levels will start to drop and cortisol levels will go up in ways that can be detrimental to recovery and the goals of the training. But that's different than training that's specifically geared toward increasing testosterone. Duncan French, who's one of the directors of the UFC Performance Center, when he was a graduate student at University of Connecticut Stores, did some beautiful work. He and his colleagues found the ideal training protocols for stimulating testosterone release, which is something that many people want to do for a variety of reasons. And that involved doing 6 sets of 10 repetitions, even if it requires lightening the weight on one set to the next, with about 2 minutes, 120 seconds rest in between sets, which, if you think about it, is pretty short rest and is pretty darn hard work. Now, what's interesting is that there's a very limited threshold for increasing testosterone. That protocol of 6 sets of 10 repetitions led to these big increases in serum testosterone. But if people did 10 sets of 10, so just 4 more repetitions per set, then testosterone did not increase. In fact, you got more of this catabolic cortisol-like pathway. You get other benefits from the so-called 10 sets of 10 protocol, but not the testosterone increase and maybe even reductions in testosterone. Now, it's important to point out that 6 sets of 10 was done with big compound movements, so things like squats or deadlifts or chin-ups or things of that sort. And those were done as single sessions, not in concert with a bunch of other exercise. Although if athletes are doing that, there's no reason why they couldn't also do other types of training elsewhere in the week. I asked Duncan about this, and he mentioned that done twice a week is probably the maximum amount that anyone could do that and still maintain this increase in testosterone. It's a very interesting protocol because as a neuroscientist, it's amazing to me that 6 sets of 10 repetitions with something causes a distinctly different result in terms of hormone output than 10 sets of 10 of the exact same movement. And it speaks to the exquisite way in which nerve to muscle connections dictate the whole physiology of your entire system. If there's a theme that I really want to bring forward today, is that weight training or resistance training of any kind is really used for either systemic effects, right? 10% of training done where you're feeling that burn, which means lactate will be present and sending signals to your brain and to your heart and to your liver that are beneficial, or isolating muscles, which may also generate a kind of a lactate or which is associated with the burn result, but that isolation of muscles is distinctly different. So systemic versus isolated. Those are the two general ways in which resistance training can be applied.